Son panelimize geçmezden hemen önce kapanış seremonimizi gerçekleştirmek üzere bugüne kadar desteklerini bizden esirgemeyen ve Türkiye'nin alanındaki en saygın uluslararası deneyime sahip akademisyenlerinden birisi olan ve benim için de çok değerli olan Sayın Profesör Doktor İlter Turan'ı kapanış seremonisinde bu yıl 6. Boğaziçi Zirvesi'nden neler aldık, neler fikir olarak almamız gerekiyor mesaj. Onları almak üzere sahneye davet ediyorum. Hemen arkasından da son panelimize geçiyoruz hiç ara vermeden.
Efendim sayın konuklar, bu toplantıya daha az yoksulluk, daha fazla refah ismini vermiştik. 6. Boğaziçi Zirvesi 86 ülkenin temsil edildiği çok sayıda katılımcının iştirakiyle toplandığı ve 3 gün devam eden oturumlarda siyasi liderler, muhtelif ülkelerden ve uluslararası kuruluşlardan gelen kamu hizmetlileri, iş dünyasının önderleri, sivil toplum kuruluşlarının temsilcileri ve bilim adamları, tabanda yoksulluğun yok edilmesi ve refahın artırılması ikiz hedeflerinin nasıl gerçekleşeceğini tartıştılar. Katılımcılar son yıllarda dünyanın bir bölümünün daha önceleri erişilmemiş refah düzeylerine ulaştığını, buna karşılık önemli bir bölümünün de fakirlik çizgisi olarak belirlenmiş günde 2 doların altında ağır mahrumiyet içinde yaşamaya devam ettiğini not ettiler. Dünyada hüküm süren servet ve refah dağılımındaki adaletsizliklerin ve bunun sonucu olarak bir türlü sona erdirilemeyen fakirliğin sadece ahlaken savunulmasının mümkün olmayan bir durum oluşturmadığı, aynı zamanda dünya barışını tehdit ettiği ve dünyanın gelecekteki iktisadi gelişmesini de engellediği, dolayısıyla devamına izin verilmemesi gerektiği konusunda da bir mutabakat ortaya çıktı. Katılımcılar 2030 yılına kadar dünyada fakirliği ortadan kaldırmayı amaçlayan, Birleşmiş Milletler tarafından önerilmiş bulunan ve 190 ülkeden fazlası tarafından imzalanmış olan sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedeflerinin ülkelerin tek tek ve işbirliği yaparak amacı gerçekleştirmeleri için makul bir çerçeve oluşturduğu fikrini benimsemişlerdir. Katılımcılar, fakirliğin yanında insanlığın dünyanın hemen her yöresinde karşılaştığı iklim değişikliğinin engellenmesi, çevre kirliliğinin önlenmesi, kadınların toplumsal konumunun güçlendirilmesi ve mültecilerin kabulü gibi sorunların aşılması için de sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedeflerinin uygun bir çerçeve sağladığı hususunda yine birleştiler. Her şekliyle fakirliğin süregelmesinin savaşlar dahil kimsenin kazançlı çıkmadığı çatışmaları davet ettiği, ülkelerin dünya düzeni değiştirmek ve iyileştirmek için bölge ve uluslararası camia temelinde işbirliği yapmaları gereğine işaret edildi ve bu konuda ihmalkarlık ve başarısızlığın sadece yoksul ülkelerin değil, bütün ülkelerin müstakbel gelişmesinin engelleyeceği de saptandı. Fakirliğin yok edilmesi ve evrensel refahın gerçekleştirilmesi konusunda hükümetler, iş dünyası, sivil toplum kuruluşları birlikte çalışmak mecburiyetindedirler. Hükümetler iktisadi gelişmeyi sağlamakta özel teşebbüsün devlete nazaran daha etkin olduğunu kabul etmekle birlikte sosyal yaklaşımları benimseyen bir iş dünyasının oluşmasını, buna karşılık sivil toplum örgütlerinin de sosyal sorumluluk değerlerinin yaygınlaşmasına katkıda bulunmalarını ve işletmelerin bu değerlere uyduğunu denetlemelerini teşvik etmelidir. Görülebildiği kadarıyla geçmişe egemen olan kar maksimizasyonu paradigması, dünyanın sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedeflerine ulaşmasını sağlamak için yeterli değildir. Finansal küreselleşme olgusuyla bir arada ele alındığı zaman bu paradigma fakirlik ve eşitsizliğe ve hükümetlerin günümüzün global ekonomisini yönlendiren kuralların oluşturduğu çerçeve içinde fakirlikle mücadele etme kabiliyetinin sınırlarına karşı duyarlı değildir. Yeni oluşturulacak bir paradigmanın iktisadi gelişmeyi sağlamak yanında iki ek temel sütun üzerine bina edilmesi de gerekmektedir. Bunlardan birincisi refahın toplumların her katına yayılmasını mümkün kılan bir sosyal boyuttur. Burada refahın sadece artan maddi refahı paylaşmaktan ibaret olmadığını, eğitim, sağlık ve korkudan özgür olma koşullarını da kapsadığını hatırlamamız gerekiyor. İkinci sütun ise iklim değişikliğine ve doğal kaynakların tüketimine karşı duyarlı olmak, itinasız üretim ve tüketim alışkanlıklarımız nedeniyle çocuklarımızın geleceğini ipotek altına almamaktır. Sosyal bir paradigmaya geçiş ve bunun uygulanmasını sağlamak için iyi yönetişim gerekmektedir. İyi yönetişimi oluşturan unsurlar arasında devlet, vatandaş arasında etkin iletişim ve işbirliğinin gerçekleştirilmesi, hukukun üstünlüğünün gözetilmesi, hükümetlerin şeffaflık ve hesap verebilirliğinin sağlanması, her seviyede yolsuzlukların önlenmesi ve küresel katılımı öngören danışma mekanizmalarının oluşturulması ve kullanılması yatmaktadır. Buna ek olarak paradigma ulusal önceliklerin bölgesel ve uluslararası ihtiyaçlarla dengelenmesini de gerektirmektedir. Özet olarak yeni bir ahlak anlayışına ihtiyaç vardır. Bu ahlakın temel unsurlarının dünya dinlerinde ve kültürlerinde bulmak mümkündür. Ancak sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedefleri çerçevesinde bu değerleri ortaya çıkarmak, sistemleştirmek, dünya liderlerinin, siyasa yapımcılarının, iş adamlarının, sivil toplum liderlerinin ve son olarak toplumların bunları özümsemesini ve eylemlerini yönlendirmesini sağlamak gerekmektedir. Böyle bir ahlak anlayışı gelişmediği takdirde sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedeflerinin başarılması zor olacak, belki de mümkün olmayacaktır. Efendim bu surette bu toplantıya hakim olan ve tartışmalar sırasında kendisini ifade eden görüşleri özetlemeye çalıştım. Bu ümit ediyorum ki bu toplantının bu toplantıya katılamayanlara da taşıyacağı bir mesaj olacaktır. Hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum efendim.
Thank you very much to Dr. İlter Turan. He has to leave, he has a flight to catch, that's why we had to get him talk up front. We are really sorry for that. And now we have our last panel of the day, which is how Islamic finance offers an alternative framework for financing sustainable development goals. However, before we start the panel, the Islamic Development Bank and UNDP Istanbul Center have an announcement to make. Now I would like to kindly invite Dr. Ahmet Fayed from Islamic Development Bank and Mr. Maros Neto from UNDP Istanbul Center to the stage, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. It's our pleasure today to announce about the establishment of the Global Islamic Impact Investing Platform in cooperations with UNDP, and also this platform for inclusive business models, and also the objectives of this platform of facilitating the use of the Islamic finance in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals as a source of financing for impact investment that promote sustainable development and inclusive markets. Thank you.
On behalf of UNDP Istanbul Center, I would like to thank the Islamic Development Bank for this partnership. We're looking forward to many years of collaboration. We believe that the Global Islamic Impact Investment Platform will be able to foster the knowledge about how Islamic financing can support the Sustainable Development Goals. We believe to also create the bridges between the impact investment community and the Islamic financing community. And finally, we hope that the platform will be able to create the linkages between inclusive business and Islamic financing. The platform, while its founding members are UNDP and Islamic Development Bank, it's a platform that is open for the participation of the private sector, other governments. As a matter of fact, the platform will tremendously benefit by expansion of other partners. Therefore, we invite you all to join us. Please feel free to approach UNDP, Islamic Development Bank, so we can grow this platform, which is strategic for the next 15 years in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much once again to Dr. Ahmet Fayed from Islamic Development Bank and Mr. Maras Neto from UNDP Istanbul Center. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present you our last panel of today, how Islamic finance offers an alternative framework for financing sustainable development goals. Our keynote speaker today is Mr. Bandal Al-Raji, the Executive Chairman of Awaqaf Al-Raji, Mr. Osman Akyüz, Secretary General, the Participation Banks Association of Turkey. Our moderator is Mr. Amir Abdulrahman, Managing Director, Fajr Capital Group. And our distinguished guest today is Dr. Ahmet Fayed, Director, Islamic Development Bank, Mr. Gökhan Dikmener, Technical Specialist, UNDP International Center for Private Sectors in Development, Dr. Mohta Bakar, Chairman of Shaira Advisory Council, the Central Bank of Malaysia, and Zubair Mughal, CEO, Al Huda Center of Islamic Banking and Economics. May I please kindly invite you all to stage. Thank you. Our last panel before closing ceremony, how Islamic finance offers an alternative framework for financing sustainable development goals. Our keynote speaker is Mr. Bandal Al-Raji, the Executive Chairman of Awaqaf Al-Raji. The stage is yours, sir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أول ما أبدأ في تحية للجميع السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I would like to ask, I will be speaking in Arabic, so if somebody would like to have a translator, they have a chance to get translation. And also, can I ask the audience please to come closer? Is it possible? If I know I'll be moving around, but I think there is a lot of empty spaces. So those who are sitting in the back, there is a front row. So I really would love that everybody come closer, and we need a kind of social meeting so everybody can contribute and also utilize this event. I don't know, I should be start. Will I start my speech and then I'll give the chance to you? So is there a timing for each individual? I have 5 minutes of timing, so I have to cover my speech. So I'll switch back to Arabic by the time people comes to the front. And good, there is an update now. I got 10 minutes, so thank you very much, the organizer. So what I would like to start with is a reading from the Holy Quran, which is the instruction from Allah Jalla wa Ala. استخلاف الأرض. قال الله جل وعلا إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. وأيضا من الآية الأخرى: وإلى ثمود أخاهم صالحا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره هو أنشأكم من الأرض واستعمركم فيها. السبب من وجودنا في هذه الدنيا هو استخلاف من الله جل وعلا، والاستخلاف هذا الذي يختلف مفهوم الإسلام أو مفهوم الاقتصاد في الإسلام مبني على مسألة عقدية دينية، فكلنا موجودين هنا لهدف ورسالة نوصلها، من ضمنها رسالتنا في الاقتصاد. وسوف أمر على بعض المحاور وبعض الجوانب التي تغطي هذه الجانب. وأن الاستخلاف معناته أننا لنا مدة، فكلنا لا يعرف متى الرحيل، كلنا ما سوف يرحل من هذه الدنيا ولا ندري متى بالضبط، فهي مرحلة وكالة أو مرحلة محدودة. لذلك هذا الاستخلاف يجب أن نكون جاهزين لهذا الرحيل متى ما حصل، فنحن جاهزين للرحيل في أي لحظة، لا نريد أن تكون المسألة معمية أو غير متاحة، فالجميع لازم يكونوا جاهزين وحاضرين. والله جل وعلا عندما خلق هذا الكون قدر فيها أقواتها في 4 أيام للسائلين، فالأقوات والأرزاق مقدرة من الله جل وعلا، ولكن أمرنا بأن نعمل في هذه وكل ما بيدنا من أيدي للتنمية وجمع وصرف المال. طبعا ليس الهدف جمع المال بل أيضا صرفه وأيضا المشاركة فيه، فهذه واحدة من المسائل التي ينبغي أن تكون واضحة في مسألة التنمية وما هي مفهوم الإسلام في هذا الجانب. والتنمية أول ما يبدأ الواحد تنمية نفسه، هذا أول شيء ما يبدأ فيه، فبعد ما ينفي تنمية نفسه من تطوير ومن حوله ثم يتوسع وهلم جرا. وأيضا هناك مفهوم جميل، وهذا أرجو أن الإخوان جميعا ينتبهوا له ويرعوه اهتمامهم، فهو قول الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. فعن أنس بن مالك أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: إن قامت الساعة وفي يد أحدكم فسيلة فإن استطاع ألا تقوم حتى يغرسها فليغرسها. يعني هذا لو سوف أشرح هذا المفهوم أحتاج محاضرة كاملة، وأرجو أن تتأملوا في كلام الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم: إن قامت على أحدكم القيامة وفي يده فسيلة فليغرسها. لاحظ القيامة قد تكون الواحد نهايته، يعني مو بشرط قيامة القيامة العامة التي على الناس، كل واحد من مات فهي قيامته، فإن استطاع أن يغرس هذه الشجرة فليغرسها. معنى الغرس معناته ليست له إنما لمن بعده، ولكن هذا من المفاهيم التي ولو أردنا أن نستعرض معكم هذه الفوائد من هذا الحديث لطال بي الحديث، لكن سوف أختصر وأركز على بعض المفاهيم الأخرى، وهي أن الحياة ليست لك فقط بل لك ولمن بعدك. وأكبر أمثل على ذلك حديث أيضا الرسول عليه السلام عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال: إذا مات أحدكم انقطع عمله إلا من 3: صدقة جارية أو علم ينتفع به أو ولد صالح يدعو له. لاحظ ولد صالح، ليس ولد بل لازم أن يكون صالح. فهذه من المسائل والمفاهيم، لأن المسؤولية الأب والأم أن ينشئوا هذا النشء ويعلمه بالشكل الصحيح، فالتعليم جزء من المسؤوليات التي على الوالد. وأيضا من الأعمال أيضا العلم، علم ينتفع به، لما أحد ينشئ كتاب أو يؤلف أو يدرس أو يعلم، هذه من العلوم التي وإنشاء المدارس والجامعات وقس عليها من كثير من الأعمال. وأيضا الصدقات الجارية، وهذه أيضا من المسألة التي انتشر فيها الحمد لله الإسلام، وهي الأوقاف، والأوقاف تستمر إلى أمد بعيدة. أنا أعرف وقف عثمان بن عفان رضي الله عنه، وهو من أحد صحابة الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام، إلى اليوم هذا ووقفه موجود في المدينة. أنا صراحة كنت في زيارة في المدينة وتفاجأت أن الوقف هذا ما زال مبني ومطور. تخيل أن له أكثر من 14,000 سنة وهو ما زال موجود ويصرف في مصارف التي أوصى بها عثمان رضي الله عنه. فعندنا الآن تعريف للتنمية المستدامة، طبعا هذه جزء من المقالة التي أتكلم عنها، وهي تتيح للجيل الحالي، نحن الجيل الحالي، الوفاء بمتطلباته دون الإخلال بقدرة الأجيال المستقبلية على الوفاء بمتطلباتهم. فلا نصل نحن أنانيين ونفكر بأنفسنا، بل لازم تكون عندنا نظرة بعيدة للأجيال التي تأتي بعدنا. وهناك عملية، يعني هي عملية اجتماعية اقتصادية بيئية. اجتماعية نقصد فيها التعليم والصحة والمياه وغيرها من المتطلبات. اقتصادية أمور الحياة من سلع وسكن وتنقل إلى آخره. أما البيئة وهي التي سأفصل أكثر في هذا الجانب، وهي مصادر الحياة: هواء، نبات، تربة، مياه، واللي تؤدي فقدها إلى تهديد الحياة، وهي الآن بدأنا نعيش بعض هذا التهديد. التنمية التقليدية أو اللي يسمونها البنوك الكونفنشنال بانكينج أو في بعض المصطلحات، يهتم بزيادة الدخل الوطني دون الاهتمام بما ينتج عن هذه الزيادة من تدمير للبيئة أو استنزاف للموارد أو تهديد للحياة، أو بمعنى آخر الدخل الوطني للجيل الحاضر دون الاهتمام بمصير الجيل القادم. وهناك مخاطر، وهذا الآن بدأنا ننتبه له: التصحر، تلوث البيئة، نفاذ المواد وأهمها المياه. الآن عندنا إشكالية في بعض المناطق من المياه، ارتفاع درجات الحرارة. فهذه من الإشكاليات التي الذين عاشوا هذا المفهوم وسيطر عليهم الرأسمالية وسيطر عليهم هذه الجانب لم يراعوا هذه الجوانب. وأضرب مثال هنا، ترى يا إخوان نحن نذكر التجارب ليس ذا، ولكن نريد أن نعيش الأزمة ونريد أن نجد حل. يعني مثلا وهذا مثال، في أمريكا مسؤولة عن 24% من حجم الغازات المنبعثة في العالم، ونحتاج تقريبا 400 مليار دولار لإصلاح ذلك. فهذه واحدة من الإشكاليات التي يعني أتمنى هذا المؤتمر يحاول يشوف كيف نتعاون مع أصحاب القرار في الولايات المتحدة، أو حتى يحتاج يمكن الأمر مسألة دولية، كيف نستصدر قرار دولي بأن المنتجات الصديقة للبيئة تعطى تسهيلات، والتي تضر بالبيئة نفرض عليها غرامات، عشان نحصل على هذا التكافؤ أو هذا التوازن في المنتجات، خصوصا البلدان التي لا تلتزم بهذه المسؤولية. فعندنا التمويل التقليدي الذي كما ذكرت لكم في البداية أضر بالبشر حاضرهم وقادمهم، لأنه اهتمامه زيادة الدخل الوطني دون الاهتمام بما ينتج عنها من أضرار. وقال الله جل وعلا: ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. فالحل له حل، يعني ما في مشكلة له حل. وقد تكون هذه المشكلة يعني التي نعانيها أساس نعيش نبحث لها عن حلول. فهي لابد التوبة أول شيء، وهو علاقتنا مع الله جل وعلا، هذه بيني وبين الله. ولكن أيضا لابد من أعمال عملية، وهي ترشيد الاستهلاك واستخدام تقنية نظيفة. فهذه من الأمور التي يجب أن نهتم فيها. والآن بنتقل معكم إلى حل أو منظور ثاني، اللي هو منظور التمويل الإسلامي. تكلمنا عن التمويل التقليدي والتمويل الإسلامي. والتمويل الإسلامي له صيغ مختلفة طبعا، لكني أبغى أذكر مسألتين مهمات، وهو أن يتم الحصول على التمويل بدون تكلفة. التكلفة هو هنا نقصد فيها الخصم الذي يحصل على الإيراد قبل الربح، فهذا الذي يحصل في التمويل التقليدي، وله صيغ مختلفة. طبعاً أنا ما عندي الوقت ما يسعني لأشرح لكم الجوانب، لكن له المضاربة والمشاركة والسلم والبيع بالتقسيط والمرابحة، وهذه بعض من الأنواع الصيغ. أما التقليدي فله صيغة واحدة فقط، وهو القروض. وإذا كان هناك ربح أكثر فلا يحصل عليه الممول. هذه مسألة يعني الممول له نسبة محدودة في التمويل التقليدي، وإذا خسر فيتحمل المستثمر كامل الخسارة. أما مزايا التمويل الإسلامي، يحرر الفرد من النزعة الأنانية، وحصول كل طرف على الجزء المناسب مع الدور الذي قام به في التنمية مع توظيف الخبرات. فهناك عدالة في توزيع نتائج الاستثمار، وأهمها توجيه التمويل الاستثمار في المجالات التي تفيد المجتمع، لأن هذا من مزايا التمويل الإسلامي، وهو نركز على الأشياء التي تفيد المجتمع. فالمال مال الله جل وعلا، ولا بد أن يوجه لخدمة أفراد المجتمع الحاضر والمستقبل. والبنوك الإسلامية لها ميزة عن البنوك التقليدية، وأن لها رؤية دنيوية وآخرة، ويسمح بتنمية مستدامة مشاركة متوازنة. وأهم الصناديق وأنا أذكر أن أهمية الصناديق السيادية في تنمية المشاريع، وأخص بالذكر مشاريع التنمية والبيئة التحتية. فمثال يعني في مصرف الراجحي فرضا في السعودية وهذه البنوك الإسلامية القديمة، في كل سنة ميزانية يظهرون نتائجهم، يركزون على النتائج والتمويل في مجال الصحة والتعليم، ولعل هذه من أهم مقومات الإنسان. طبعا أنا وقتي انتهى، وأنا فعلا انتهيت في آخر نقطة أود أن أذكرها، وهو أن أختم بحديث الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم الذي قال: إذا مات ابن آدم انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث: صدقة جارية، أو علم ينتفع به، أو ولد صالح يدعو له. وأشكركم على حسن استماعتكم، وأترك المجال لإخواني المتحدثين.
شكرا لك معالي الشيخ بندر، بارك الله فيك، ونتمنى التوفيق في تحقيق هذه الرؤية الجميلة للتمويل الإسلامي إن شاء الله. فنستمع الآن من الأخ. We'll hear now from our colleagues on the panel regarding this very important theme that we heard Sheikh Bandar talking about, which is indeed the ethical connection and the convergence really between the vision for Islamic finance and Islamic development and the Sustainable Development Goals about which we had been hearing. I would invite first our colleague, Mr. Gökhan Dikmener, technical specialist from UNDP's Istanbul International Center for Private Sector Development, to share his view on, first of all, more broadly, the Sustainable Development Goals and how they relate to the private sector work in general, which is his area of specialization, partnership with the private sector and how it supports development, and then what that might mean for ethical finance and Islamic finance in particular. So, Mr. Gökhan Dikmener, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And first I will start with briefly introducing the impact investing to you. And I guess in the last few days we heard a lot about how complex and challenging our situation now on the world, and how we have to cooperate with all stakeholders to address all these challenges. And the governments, the traditional tools and the instruments in the government's portfolio are not sufficient to deal with these challenges. And our luck as a generation, I guess we are experiencing a huge growth in the capacity of the private sector. Private sector is delivering most of the goods and the services that we need now. And at the same time, they are having a greater interest in being part of the solutions and the challenges. And in this sense, I guess the private sector with its assets and the solutions will help addressing the challenges of the world in the new era. And I would like to briefly introduce the impact investing, how it evolved. It mainly came after the 2008 financial crisis, and the main takeaway from the financial crisis was the finance industry should not harm or endanger the sustainability of the societies, but it should contribute. And actually this required adding another dimension to the two-dimensional world of the finance industry. You know, the traditional dimensions were the risk and the return, and the third dimension is now, the new dimension is the impact. And what happened in the last decade? In less than 10 years, the industry actually grew faster than expected. And the 15% rate, it experienced 15% rate growth annually. And also it diversified its assets and instruments, and embraced also some existing instruments like the social impact bonds and the development impact bonds. And this market is growing faster, and it helps also diversifying the risk and balancing the portfolios. So the basic definition of the impact investing is actually the investments to companies and funds with the intention to generate social and environmental impact, and alongside this financial return. So there are three components in here. There is the intentionality and investment with return expectation, and also impact measurement. So first, we have a clear intention about what we would like to get from this investment, and also our willingness to share the results about the impact, and also there should be a return. And this actually measurement of the impact provides also a greater flexibility in the return rates. Some investors may sacrifice a certain amount of return for getting higher impact on the ground. And the next actually topic that I would like to present is how impact investing is gaining prominence in the policy space. In the last 3 days, I guess we heard a lot about the G20 inclusive business work, and we heard that G20, all the members of the group, especially embraced and also endorsed the inclusive business models. And a similar endorsement to impact investing came from the G8. G8 recently, during the UK leadership, established a social impact working group and provided a policy guidance document. And OECD followed this trend, and OECD also provided to its members a policy guidance document. So this actually signals to us that impact investing will become a mainstream approach in the finance industry. And how the impact investment and the inclusive businesses are complementing each other. Basically, impact investors are looking for inclusive business models, inclusive investment opportunities, and what we are doing in our institution, IICPST, we are providing actually report and guidance materials about the inclusivity of the societies, inclusivity of the markets, and at the same time we are documenting inclusive business models and their impact. So these documented inclusive business models will be the first target group for the impact investors. And how it is related to SDGs. SDGs are different from the MDGs in 2 different ways, and this will actually provide the base for the impact investing. The first is SDGs are more comprehensive. First of all, there are 17 targets, more than 160 sub-targets, and covering economic dimension, social dimension, and inclusiveness, and environmental dimension, and governance dimension. So all these indicators will be tracked and documented. And the second area is it is universal. So if an Islamic finance institution could develop a solution to one of these challenges through an impact investing in the instrument, this can be implemented also in Germany and USA. So the market is larger than before. So it's more comprehensive, it's global, it's universal. So it's actually providing a great opportunity for the industry. And what are the other opportunities for the industry and the private sector? The first thing is development means actually more growth and at the same time higher profits. And the resilience will come through development. And there is also increasing expectations from the society, consumers, about being more responsive. And in the future, I guess we will hear a lot about millennials. When I heard this term, I couldn't make a sense about it, but it's coming. It's like the internet. When we heard the internet, we couldn't understand how it changed our lives. But the millennials will change the consumer behavior a lot. And these are the most educated cohort of the most educated group in our history. So they will be more demanding from the companies, and they will be more responsive to the needs of the others. And the impact investing industry actually will be highly benefiting from this new group. And you can see some change in the behavior of the general mainstream investment community. For example, Kickstarter, they trust each other more and they invest. And at the global level, the SDGs, implementation of SDGs will require a tremendous amount of funding, 6 trillion per year. And the impact investing industry could provide immediately 1 trillion and could reach up to 3 trillion. So there's great potential for the investors. And also there are specific targets for the private sector, like SDG Goal 8, Industry and Innovation, SDG Goal 9, Industry and Innovation, Goal 8, Decent Work, and Goal 12, Responsible Consumption and Production. One final note, there is a sub-target under the SDG 12, Responsible Consumption and Production. it will ask for increasing the number of integrated reporting, which means we will all communicate our progress in SDGs, including the financial institutions. So all financial institutions or the financial instruments will be evaluated in terms of also their performance in SDG progress and SDG achievements. And thank you. If you have any further questions on this, I will be happy to respond.
Thank you very much for your important comments. I do hope we'll have time for questions afterwards. But without further ado, let me turn to Dr. Muhammad Dawood Bakr, who's one of the world's leading Sharia scholars and an authority in the Islamic finance space. Amongst his many affiliations is that he is chairman of the Sharia Advisory Council at Bank Negara Malaysia, which is the central bank of Malaysia, and as well as the Securities Commission of Malaysia and several other regulatory bodies. He is also active in the private sector as a Sharia advisor to many institutions around the world. So really, Sheikh Dato Dawood Bakr is very uniquely positioned to tell us about what's happening in the industry. Dato, if I may ask, when you present your comments, to speak about, of course, the principles and ethics of Islamic finance underpinning, as we heard from Sheikh Bandar, but also in terms of how you see its implementation from a policy perspective, given the perspective that you have globally. So, Dato, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for the organizer of having me this afternoon, and thank you for everyone for staying back to the end of the session. And my words of congratulations for UNDP and IDB for taking a very bold initiative to make impact measurement part of Islamic finance mainstream agenda. And we look forward all the best for your effort, and we are more than happy from Sharia Scholar perspective to support this new initiative moving forward. As you know, Islamic finance has a lot of principle and ethical principle, what Sheikh Bandar has mentioned just now, but somehow, unfortunately, these principles are not being put in place, in practice, in terms of products, in terms of structures, in terms of vehicle. Islamic finance, or Islam as a whole, has become very individualistic, more of individual rather than the institution. Perhaps we have to move away from individual effort to become a more structured, and perhaps at a global arena, working together with government, the government-linked companies, the international bodies. And we heard that World Bank and IMF have set up their own department of finance, so they become more serious to consider working on making Islamic finance and banking part of their product offering. And today we have heard about UNDP and IDB. So I think the momentum is taking place quite well, though we are a bit late, a bit outdated, but we are trying to play the catching up game, if you like. The World Bank has issued 500 million sukuk to support the vaccination program in many underdeveloped countries against the serious illness. And this sukuk was last year or perhaps year before, was oversubscribed by the investors. That investors are very much, look forward to invest in this kind of sukuk for the humanitarian, if you like. And before that, we have heard the SIB, the Social Impact Bond in the West, and we have the Green Bond in the West as well. But Islamic banking is a bit late, but it's never too late to catch up. In the case of Malaysia, I have worked with the Khazanah Nasional Berhad, the government investment arm, one of the GLCs, government-linked companies, to issue the first ever SRI sukuk in Malaysia, the Sustainable Responsible Investment Sukuk, up to 1 billion ringgit Malaysia. Of course, they have issued the first one just for 100 million to support the development of school, the public school in the rural areas, which are away from the cities, big cities. They are in East Malaysia for the underprivileged student, lacking the facilities, lacking the electricity, lacking the computers and what have you. So this 100 million will be used to develop the school. There'll be 40 schools altogether throughout Malaysia, and they will be subjected to the impact measurement after 5 years. So after 5 years, the investors will get their money back, and they will get the coupon, the profit, according to the prospectus, let's say 4% after 5 years. However, if the school can perform better or can perform up to the grade which is expected of them, the coupon will be reduced. The profit to be given will be reduced. They call step-down approach. So the sukuk will be paying a lesser amount, in fact, no profit at all, if they can achieve the most highest grade if possible. So this is a very unique, because in the world at large, I have not seen any impact sukuk, impact measurement sukuk, which is based on step down. Most of them are step up, meaning to say the coupon is 2%. If the environment, the social can be better, then the investor can get more profit from that perspective. I think we can talk about structures later on, but the movement has started. At least in Malaysia, for the government of Malaysia, we have issued in our policies the SRI Sukuk guideline. So I'm working now with 1 or 2 issuers next year, inshallah, to issue more SRI Sukuk in the market to develop Waqaf development. We have many lands in Malaysia, needs money, and investors are willing to put their money to develop Waqaf and not to receive the profit if the Waqaf can give good impact that the previous speaker has been just now, and to develop also the environment, hospital, one of the project, because many people are not having the proper treatment because they are poor, they are away from the facilities, so we have to make them, these facilities available to everyone. And last but not least, I think we have discussed a lot about environment, about social, ESG, about the corporate governance, but we have missed one important aspect, which is humanitarian. Nowadays, human is more important than environment. We have seen human are being refugees, are being underprivileged across the globe. Perhaps we have to redefine our impact measurement to put on the top of the list human, interest, the life. The most important is the life, and education will come in, the treatment of illness will come later, but the preservation of the most important asset for this world that God has given to us is the life of person. So I think the SRI and the impact measurement should focus a bit more clearly, more vividly clear in the media, in the speech, in the policies advocacy, that humanitarian cause will come first beyond the other aspect. Islam put the life is very important after the religion. Hifzuddin, or preservation of religion, and the second is the preservation of life. We will talk about preservation of properties, about the family and what have you. So this is my small comment on the whole movement. Hopefully Sharia finance can do more and better, because the areas of Islamic countries are very much far behind, and we have to be part of the whole global movement to make Islamic finance in the mainstream of this kind of SRI. I think thank you, and any question, more than happy to take later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato, for your comments, and I do hope we're able to take questions, particularly on the important role, as you said, of the Sharia scholars in guiding this evolution for our industry. To Dato's left is Zubair Mughal, Mr. Zubair Mughal, the CEO of Al Huda Center for Islamic Banking and Economics. He has been very active in the Islamic finance industry for more than a decade in various capacities, including training, consulting, advisory work. So very much has a hands-on understanding of what's being done by practitioners in the Islamic finance industry. So Mr. Mughal, in your comments, we'd love to hear again about the convergence that you see, but also where the rubber hits the road in terms of the actual practitioners. To what degree do you see the SDGs being in their minds, or more broadly development, and how they combine that with their objectives commercially and the business work they do. Zubair has some slides, which I believe are, I hope they're already loaded on the machine. If I may, are they? Okay, so then Mr. Mughal will use some slides in making his presentation.
Nabatu Nasalila Rasulil Kareem Amabad Fauz Billah Min Shaitan Rajim Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to thank to the organizer to give me opportunity to speak about the connection between Islamic finance and sustainable development goal. My presentation, a small presentation, will be covering that why Islamic microfinance is necessary to achieve the sustainable development goals. First of all, if we see in the Muslim world, we have come to know that Muslims are basically financially excluded. According to the World Bank report, about 44% of the Muslim, the conventional client reside into the Muslim world. And if we see that most of the Muslim people do not utilize conventional financial products and remain excluded from the financial inclusion. If we want to include them into the financial inclusion, then we need such financial products which are according to their religious and social beliefs. We believe that poverty do not have any religion, but it can be reduced due to some religious interventions of Islam. Care for the poor, basically the religious obligation in Islam. If we compare Islam with other religions about the poverty alleviation, then we have come to know that Islam is the only religion where poverty alleviation is the religious obligations for the Muslims. We have to pay zakat, sadaqah, khairat, even loan. That is the religious obligation for the Muslims. The majority of the people living on less than $1.25 a day belong to the two regions, Southern Asia and Sub-Sahara, where Muslims have a big population. So if we want to reduce poverty from there, then we have to introduce Islamic microfinance or Islamic financial system. Asset-based financing is the essence of Islamic finance. We have seen recent international financial crisis and learned a lesson that financing without the backing of asset is always risky. But when you have to do financing with the poor, with the backing of asset, that asset create a positive impact in the lives of the poor basically. Almost one half of the 57 IDP members countries in Asia and Africa are classed as the United Nations least developed countries. And we also need a sustainable financial system to achieve sustainable development goals. And definitely that system is Islamic finance. These are some product mechanism of the Islamic financial system. We have derived Islamic financial product either from Quran-e-Pak, Sunnah, Ijma, or Ijtihad. And those products, I have segregated these products into 4 categories. Some of the partnership-based mode, date-based mode, rental-based mode, and there are some other products, Qarz-e-Hasan, Waqf model, Zakat, Sukuk, and Takaful. And we can utilize these products to achieve these 17 sustainable development goals. For the foremost goal is the no poverty and no hunger. We can utilize Islamic microfinance for this purpose. We can utilize the concept of Waqf. We can utilize the Qarz-e-Hasan and Zakat system and Baitul Mal system to achieve this goal. Good health, quality education. We have the Takaful product who deal with the health, Takaful, and educational product. So we can design micro Takaful product to achieve the good health and quality education goal. Then we have gender equality and some other goals. For clean energy, we can utilize Sukuk. For good jobs and economic growth, we have some other product. Then for the infrastructure development, we again have Sukuk. And for the sustainable cities development, we have a concept of Sukuk and as well as Islamic real estate investment trust.
which we can utilize to achieve such goals. If we see the product mechanism of Islamic finance, we can understand that Islam have a special consideration for each level of the poverty. We can categorize poverty into different levels. There are some poor who are the extreme poor, chronic poor. We cannot deal with the microfinance. But Islam have some charitable product for them like zakat, sadaqah, and ushur. Then we have a transit poor, non-transit poor, qarzation, murabia, ijara, and mudarba can be utilized for those segments of the poverty to achieve sustainable development goal. Then we have some transit and non-poor. The salam istasna can be utilized for transit non-poor. And for the non-poor category, we can utilize shelter-based product, which is the micro takaful or takaful. So in Islamic financial system, we have a unique product for each segment of the society to achieve such goal. As social sustainable development goal is not only limited with the Muslim segment of the society, but it is for global. So I would like to rectify one misconception that Islamic finance is not only for Muslim. Islamic finance is a system which can be utilized Muslim and non-Muslim. For example, I have a mobile and I am utilizing Android system. Might be this system made by any non-Muslim, but it didn't harm to my religion. So Islamic finance should be treated as a system for Muslim and non-Muslim, for the poverty alleviation and social development. So there are the certain factors which need to be considered while we're doing Islamic finance to achieve social development goal. The transaction should be, the fund should be Sharia compliant, Sharia vetted product, Sharia compliant investment, training and quality human resources, free of interest financing, takaful, and free from ghalat. These are some components which need to be considered while doing Islamic finance. In my last slide, I want to discuss that Islamic finance can utilize with any model of the poverty alleviation. Islamic finance product can be worked with the Grameen model. Grameen model is very much famous in Bangladesh and Latin America and some other country. Many organizations who have utilizing Grameen model, even Imana Ikhtiyar in Malaysia, Islamic Bank Bangladesh, they are adopting the Grameen model but offering Islamic financial product. Islamic financial product can work with the village banking model as well. Finca itself doing Islamic finance in Afghanistan, but utilizing village banking model. So Islamic financial product also work with the credit union model, which is very famous in America and European countries. There is an example, Muslim Credit Union in Tobago. They are utilizing credit union model, but offering Islamic financial products. An Islamic financial model product can work with the cooperative models, self-help group, which is famous in India, and as well as for profit bank and microfinance institution. So Islamic financial instrument should be treated as a financial instrument for poverty alleviation and social development for achieving a sustainable development goal. One of the main issue which we observe, and that we also think about what was the shortcoming related to the Millennium Development Goal. One of them is that they didn't utilize Islamic financial instrument. They didn't think about the Muslim component of the different country, because a lot of the poverty are in the conflict countries, and Muslim countries are basically belong to the conflict country like Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq, and some other countries. I hope so by including Islamic financial system in sustainable development goal, we will achieve our common goal to alleviate the poverty and social development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mughal. To my left is Dr. Ahmed Fayed Al-Jibali from the Islamic Development Bank. You just heard the announcement by the Islamic Development Bank and the UNDP regarding the Islamic Impact Investment Platform, which I'm sure will be mentioned. But also one of the things I believe we'll hear from Dr. Al-Jibali is the way in which the Islamic Development Bank has aligned its objectives with the SDGs. So very much taken the SDGs on and incorporated them into their work. So with that, I'll ask Dr. Ahmed Fayed Al-Jibali to take the stage, and he also has slides. So I believe he'll present from the podium. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Today the presentation will cover the following area. Just firstly, briefly share with on some of the facts and figures on the real issues facing the world today and the world community, which has been taken from the United Nations website, global challenges, and we're going to talk about sustainable development by the meaning which already has been covered. I'm trying to summarize here, also challenging facing the existing financial system, and overview of the Islamic finance and how Islamic finance can be mapped to the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030. Some facts here that I would like to share, which is the gap in income and wealth is widening worldwide today. One of the 5 people still lacks access to modern electricity. 836 million people still live in extreme poverty. Globally, 1 in 9 people in the world today, 795 million, are undernourished. 103 million people, youth people, worldwide lack basic literacy skills. More than 6 million children still die before their 5th birthday each year. Water scarcity affects more than 40% of the global population and is projected to rise. 822 million people live in slums today, and the number is keeping rising. If we are looking about all this challenging, which has been taken from the United Nations website, we have to ask ourselves today, is our global financial system today serve our needs currently and also can serve the future needs of the human beings? Can the global financial system today help us to restore the dignity of the human beings? I think with all this recurrent financial crisis that we are facing, I think a lot of question mark we can raise today. As such, the following questions shall be answered by us, which is the global financial system today is the answer or can be the solution for the social justice in distributing the wealth? I'm not going to answer, but I will leave these questions for everybody to answer between himself and ourselves. I think based on the facts and the figures that I shared in my previous slides, it looks like that it seems that the current financial system is unable to take care of the issues that we are facing, especially on playing a role in redistribution of the wealth worldwide. I'm going to pass the sustainable development because my colleagues here, they talk about it in a very good details, and it's already all we know about it. I'd like to share here only the 4 priorities areas for financing SDGs to know how we can map Islamic finance to these challenges. First, investment flow will have to come increasingly from the private sources, which is today we announce about launching such a platform, which will encourage bringing private sectors and capital market towards such objectives. Second, domestic resources mobilization can play a key role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We shouldn't ignore the domestic resource mobilizations. Official development assistance, which is the ODA, must be blended with the private sources or crowd in order in other funding sources. MDBs should have to they should take up a different role, convening role in providing technical assistance and financing, achieving the development goals. Challenging facing the existing financial system, would like here to concentrate based on the finding of the various research done on the financial crisis. It's hypothesized that the existing financial system carries a lot of challenges and weaknesses that are unable to sustain in the long run. The main cause of contributing to the instability is the unsustainable debt, or in other words, the debt creation is be fully utilized for productive development, but more toward consumption needs. The problem of the unsustainable debt is future worsened by the elements of interest charged by the creditors. This interest element shall increase the amount of debt of any particular person without support from the real wealth itself. I'm going to go through how the Islamic finance globally looks like today. If we want to describe the Islamic finance industry as bare design, it's almost $2 trillion today. 80% is with the Islamic banks, Islamic financial institution and Islamic banks. And the rest between the sukuk, the investment funding, and the insurance, which is the takaful Islamic insurance. What we expect in the coming few years. If you look at the growth rate in the Islamic finance industry, comparing to the conventional system, maybe because of the size, but it's faster, 50% faster than the conventional today, which is based on our studies, in-house studies. We expected that in a couple of years, 2020, the Islamic finance industry can reach $3.4 trillion. If we are talking here, if we are talking about bare design, this industry today serving more than 70 million customers worldwide, with an average assets growth of 17%, with across more than 92 countries worldwide. These countries has been classified in 3 categories. We call it reach and performance and under development or under enablement. If we are looking for an industry which is by default, not by design, I will give you one example. S&P, Dow Jones, having a $7 trillion in their index, 1.9 out of that is Sharia compliant because it's asset-based industry. So we're talking about an industry, a hidden industry, which is, we call it Islamic finance by default, is more than 1.9 trillion. I will go through what Islamic finance. Always people, they are asking, what does it mean Islamic finance? I want to share something here, which is not in my presentation. But as a Muslims, what I believe in the Old Testament, New Testament, and the Holy Quran. And this is the source of the Sharia principle. When I'm saying in Sharia principle or comply with Sharia principle or Islamic principle, I mean based on my beliefs as a Muslims, that all this has been taken from the Old Testament, New Testament, and the Holy Quran. We are not talking here about Islamic finance, which has been only taken from the Holy Quran, because as a Muslims, I believe in Moses, I believe in Jesus, I believe in Muhammad. Based on that beliefs, we have to follow all their messages as being received by us as a human beings. So, a system based on a moral principle, backed by a set of legal rules, which is, we call it Sharia, in guiding economic behaviors. The system aiming to achieve a balance between market incentive and philanthropic motives, promoting the economic development, social justice through the principle of risk and rewards, which is, we call it risk sharing. Finance should be tightly integrated with the real economic activities. I have to run a little bit fast because the time has been given, but I wish if I can allocate it the 5 minutes, 5.53 seconds saved by Dr. Dawood. So Islamic finance can play a strong role in the, at least in the 3 dimensions. Let me to share what dimension that I mean here. Islamic finance possesses fair and equitable tools for risk appetite and allocations. Islamic finance possesses effective instruments to promote domestic resources mobilizations. Islamic finance possesses enabling social welfare tools to leverage concessional finance. It's important to stress that Islamic finance is a form of financial intermediations in accordance with the moral and social preferences of the society. I'm to the end of my presentation. Here, based on a study, a quick study in IDB, I'd like to share with you how we mapped our IDB priorities and also the member countries, which is 56 countries, a member of IDB, how we mapped these priorities to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals with the 169 tasks or targets that we can do. Islamic Development Bank has laid down its mission priorities in which are mapped with its member countries' priorities, i.e. alleviating poverty, prospering people, and promoting education, improving health, and improving governance. We have conducted a study on all the 17 goals and 169 targets laid down in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we found out that at least one of the targets under of each goal can be mapped easily against the IDB group mission priorities. IDB, as a global leader in the Islamic finance and since the establishment of the Islamic Development Bank 40 years ago, the bank has successfully implemented and funded various projects equal to almost $105 billion and activities in Sharia-compliant manner in achieving all the mission priorities for our member countries. As such, and based on the IDB, more than 40 years of experience in the areas of development finance through Sharia-compliant instruments, proved that Islamic finance has all the enabling instruments and means in promoting any development agenda, including the Sustainable Development Goals. To share with you how we mapped the 17 goals to the Islamic finance main pillars. In this slide, I would like to, In this slide, we attempt to map the all 17 Sustainable Development Goals based on the target laid down, and we found that at least one of the targets, as I mentioned before, can be mapped to each goal need funding and finance requirements for achieve its objectives. We can group all the funding activities in 2-3 broad categories as follows. Finance of the social development. What we mean by finance for social development? Is it to raise or to mobilize funds to finance the social aspects of the society? For example, we should be able to raise sufficient funds to finance any program related to fighting poverty and hunger. Financing, the second one, financing for infrastructure development. Meanwhile, the term financing for infrastructure development means that sizable amount of funding is needed in developing any infrastructure, a related project, for example, in achieving goal number 6, clean water and sanitations requires huge funding to build the necessary infrastructure. Number 3, financing to promote innovative, to achieve efficiency. Lastly, the term financing to promote innovations to achieve efficiency is referring to the funding requirements that are needed for any innovation activities. Innovations, as the name suggests, is normally associated with high-risk activities, as any new innovations is carrying higher failure rate. As such, a specific mechanism shall be devised to fund this kind of activities. SDGs number 7 on affordable and clean energy, for example, requires high amounts of funding for new innovations. The last slides that I have, and I would like to share with you, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, for taking much time, but this is a comprehensive Islamic finance solution in supporting the SDGs. Here we try to map each of the 3 dimensions under the Islamic finance to the number of SDGs, the 17 SDGs, and to the Islamic finance instrument that can be used to finance such activities and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. I'd like here just to share with you that there is a research done by my team in IDB, which is IDB has published already a working paper titled The Role of Islamic Finance in Achieving Sustainable Development Goals, which is available on our website of IRTI, which is the Institution of Research and Training entities within IDB group. And I would like to thank you very much, and sorry for taking much time. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. Now we are overdue for the closing ceremony, so if you'll join me in extending our word of appreciation to all of our panelists for their contributions. And we'll turn it to the organizer to wrap us up. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would kindly like to request our panelists to stay on their seat. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ali Coşkun, the former Minister of Industry, to the stage for his remark, to hear his remarks on our Bosporus Summit. Ali Coşkun Bey, sizi sahneye davet etmek istiyorum.
İyi akşamlar. Dost ve kardeş ülkelerin değerli temsilcileri, değerli katılımcılar, basının değerli temsilcileri, böyle yorgun bir akşamda hepinizi Uluslararası İşbirliği Platformu adına saygıyla, sevgiyle selamlıyorum. Böylesine başarılı bir oturumdan sonra 45 dakika konuşmayı düşünmüştüm. Ancak bu yorgun saatte 45 dakika beni dinlemeyeceğinizi bildiğim için 5 dakikalık bir kısa konuşmayla hepinizi selamlamak istiyorum. Değerli konuklar, kıtaların kavuştuğu, medeniyetlerin buluştuğu, tarih, kültür, turizm ve finans merkezi olan güzel İstanbul'umuzda düzenlenmiş olan 6. Boğaziçi Zirve toplantılarımız başarıyla sonuçlanmış bulunuyor. Emeği geçenleri gönülden kutluyorum. Ne yazık ki 20. asra girerken umut beslediğimiz güzelliklere henüz ulaşamadık. İnsan merkezli bir yapılanma beklerken Orta Doğu başta olmak üzere sıcak çatışmalar açık savaş haline dönüşerek acımasızca devam ediyor. Dini milliyeti olmayan terör milletleri, devletleri, bölgeleri tehdit ederek yayılmakta. Sonuçta ölüm, açlık, sefalet ve mülteciler. Bu nedenle değerli arkadaşlarımız haklı olarak konferansın ana temasını daha az yoksulluk, daha fazla refah olarak seçmiş bulunmaktadırlar. 3 gündür yetkili konuşmacılar insanlığın, ülkelerin, tüm dünyanın geleceğini çok yakından ilgilendiren konuları enine boyuna yorumlayıp önemli hedefler, önlemler ortaya koydular. Özet olarak uluslararası ekonomik beklentiler, iş imkanları, kalkınma hedefleri, finansman sorunları ve İslami finans, genç girişimciler ve kadının ekonomik hayattaki katkısı, dünya politikalarını etkilemekte olan enerji piyasaları ve beklentiler, spor, sanat, kültür, yani hayatımızın her safhası masaya yatırıldı. Zaman zaman duygulandık, zaman zaman düşündük, öğretici 3 günü beraber geçirdik. Ama konuşmalar arasında, yorumlar arasında en çarpıcı görüşler sefaletin, gelir dağılış adaletsizliğinin önlenmesi sorunlarıydı. Savaşlardı, terördü. Zira kaynakların, savaşların, terörün finansmanında harcanması yerine barış, eğitim, sağlık ve insani değerler için harcanabilseydi, sorunlar tamamen bitmese de böylesine tırmanmazdı, insanlığı felaketlere sürükleyecek sonuçlara gelmezdi. Diğer taraftan geniş ve zengin kaynakları elinde tutan zümreler çevreyi tahrip ederek, kaynakları israf ederek ve iklim değişikliklerini tahrik ederek dünyayı yok edercesine insanlığın geleceğini çılgınca tehdit ederek acaba bu kötü savaşlara ve terör zemini hazırlamıyorlar mı? Evrensel değerleri özümsemeyen, gelişmelere ve insan haklarına duyarsız bazı ülke ve siyasi liderler ne zaman gerçekleri görebilecekler? Konuşmacılar ifadeleri arasından sadece düşündürücü bir cümleyle konuşmamı bitirmek istiyorum. Dünya nüfusunun yaklaşık %10'u, servetin %86'sını, kalan nüfusun %90'ı ise servetin sadece %14'ünü paylaşmakta. 1 milyar insan günde 1 dolar ile yaşama savaşı vermekte. Avrupa yollarında her gün onlarca, yüzlerce Suriyeli mülteci boğularak ya da hastalıkla, açlıkla ölüyor. Toplantıda acı ve gerçek tablolar tekrar gözümüzün önüne çareleriyle beraber serildi. Türkiye'nin başarıyla ev sahipliği, dönem başkanlığı yaptığı G20'ler toplantısında dünya liderlerinin görüşleri ve sonuç raporu ortada. Gecikmeden tek çıkış yolu dost ve kardeşçe ilişkilerin egemen olacağı, barış, güven ve istikrar ortamında dayanışma, işbirliği, adil bölüşüm, savaşsız, terörsüz politikaların uygulanması gerekiyor. Başka çıkış yolumuz yok. Sözlerime son verirken yaklaşan yeni yılınızı bu son duygularla kutlarken bir kez daha başta bu organizasyonu gerçekleştiren değerli kardeşim Cengiz Özgencil olmak üzere tüm emeği geçenlere ve katılımcılara teşekküre bir borç biliyorum. Ve işlerinizde başarılar diliyorum. Dost ve kardeş ülkelerden ve çeşitli illerden gelmiş olan konuklarımıza, evlerine, işlerine gönül dolusu sevgilerimizle dönmelerini diliyorum. Nice başarılı zirvelerde buluşmak üzere. Hoşça kalınız. Hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum.
Thank you very much to Mr. Ali Coşkun, former Industry and Trade Minister. Now I would like to kindly invite Mr. Frederick Kehkov, former Ambassador of Canada to Pakistan, Indonesia and Egypt, to hear his remarks on our summit.
It's a great honor to be invited to provide some summary, but my predecessor did such a wonderful job that I wonder whether I should just shut up and say, well said, sir. But I guess I have to do something too. Let me first remind ourselves how, first of all, this summit is an extraordinary summit, and it's my first one, and it will certainly not be my last, at least I hope, inshallah. But I think we were so wonderfully inspired by His Highness Prince Turki right from the beginning, because he managed, with an extraordinary sense of grandeur, as you say in French, to bring together, first of all, a broad economic perspective, the role of business. He highlighted the political pitfalls, but with a sense of hope despite so many tragedies. And I think he provided us with a holistic vision, which I think inspired everything we've talked about thereafter. The second point I think I want to highlight is the fact that, yes, we're talking about poverty, but we have linked it to the SDGs. And that connection is very important because the Millennium Development Goal tended to separate the haves and the have-nots. The SDG involved all of us, and we're no longer classified by whether we're rich, poor, or profiteerings. We are all engaged in this effort. And thereafter, of course, what is the most critical aspect of everything we do is to work at the grassroots. And there again, we've been given a lesson in inclusiveness. None should be left behind. We've also heard that technology can help. It also has its dangers. And we have to use technology intelligently. We've also heard about the fluctuations in commodities and to what extent some of it may be more political, some more economic, and some more simply straight, effective business. The role of government, yes, indispensable, but it needs partnership, and I'll say a bit more about that. I was invited also to talk about Islamic financing, which I was delighted to do. And I think we're working together on this platform which will blend the thinking on Islamic finance and impact investment. And I want to thank particularly Zubair Miguel for having given us this kind of outline, which I found very powerful, and I think we should all take his PowerPoint with us. I'm always delighted to see when we talk about women. My friend Paul Collier wrote The 1 Billion Poor. I keep on hoping that we also remember that there's only 4 billion women, and therefore they are part and parcel of who we are. They are we are they. And I think that has come out remarkably from that panel. I won't go through every single panel. I just wanted to remind ourselves of some of the highlights. The debate in the States about refugees, about Islam,
I know it is politically tainted, but I find that very dangerous. And I'm delighted that I come from the country, the little country just up north, which is only the second largest country in the world, but in population terms, we're only 35 million. And that it took a courageous new Prime Minister of Canada to decide that we were going to take as many refugees as we can. But it's not just taking refugees, it is participating in a global solution to a significant problem. It was delightful to talk also and to hear about art and culture and sport, because we cannot treat these as some sidekick. They're part again of the essence that we are. And I think that I don't want to be pessimistic, because this summit has given us a lot of hope, but we also have to remind ourselves that we live several crises: the crisis of governance, the increasing inequalities. I sometimes remind myself of Mohammed al-Baradei, the former head of the IAEA, the Egyptian, who a lot of Westerners wanted him to become president of Egypt, as if we could impose who was going to be the president of a country. The West has a tendency of falling in love with leaders that they would love to have other countries take on. And usually those countries don't seem to share the views of the West. I think a lesson of humility is important. I think there's also an issue of the relationship between the governed and the governors. And that one also is a critical one. And we also have a crisis of institution. And this is why this summit has brought it all together. And really, my last remark is that we have a huge responsibility. There's a need for leadership, and governments cannot provide it alone. And that's where the partnership that we have been talking for the past 4 days is so essential. The governments cannot do it alone. We cannot do it alone, but leadership is at the heart of the solution of the future. Thank you very much.
Very much. We would like to express our greatest thanks to the ambassador. Thank you. Çok değerli misafirlerimiz, 6. Boğaziçi Zirvesi'nin sonuna geldik. Şimdi kapanış seremonisini yapması ve ardından çok değerli panelistlerimize onur plaketlerini takdim etmek üzere Uluslararası İşbirliği Platformu Kurucu Başkanı Sayın Cengiz Özgencil'i sahneye davet ediyorum.
Çok değerli misafirlerimiz, 6. yılımızı da hep birlikte çok verimli bir 3 gün geçirerek sonuçlandırdık. İslami Finans Paneli'nden önce malumunuz olduğu üzere sonuç bildirgesinin taslak metni okundu. 6 yıldır son panelden önce tekrarladığımız bu taslak metnin amacı, son panelde görüşlerini aldığımız board üyelerimiz ve değerli katılımcılardan olumlu, pozitif sonuç çıktığı için ben burada sonuç bildirgesinin onaylandığını kabul ediyorum. Ve yarın gazetelere servis yapılacak, bilmenizi istiyorum. Ben değerli katılımcılara bu zirvemize katılıp çok verimli konuşmalar yaptıkları için ayrı ayrı teşekkür ediyorum. Değerli misafirlerimize bu saatlere kadar bizi dinledikleri için çok teşekkür ederim. İnşallah 7. yılımızda görüşmek üzere, saygılarımla.
Şimdi sevgili misafirlerimize onur plaketleri takdim edilecektir. Hepinize çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ladies and gentlemen, we came to the end of 6th Bosphorus Summit. Now Mr. Cengiz Özgencil is going to present the honor of plaque to our distinguished panelists and moderator and speakers. Thank you very much for participating in the 6th Bosphorus Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, we came to the end of 6th Bosphorus Summit. We hope you enjoyed and thank you so much for participating in our summit. We are going to have a group session now and we would like to see you next year again. Thank you so much once more again on the behalf of International Cooperation Platform.